Hey there, YouTube. Mashmeister76 here, doing the second part of the record collection in this video. I will focus on my few punk records and my psychedelic records. And the first video with my Kiss records cut out, so I will go over this here. This is my copy of Creatures of the Night. It is the only one I've happened upon, like many others in my collection, except for a picture disc copy, which was, I think, $75. So the sleeve on this one, the cardboard one, is pretty much falling apart. The back is coming unglued, which is why I don't really take it out of the plastic sleeve very much. But it's one of those copies of a record that I bought to say I have it, pretty much. So, I mean, it plays decently, but I'd like to get a better copy because it's one of my favorite Kiss albums, and it pretty much marks the end of the era where I'm interested in collecting the Kiss records. That's like the end bookmark. Pretty much everything else in between is what I'm interested in. So now we'll get on to the punk records. I don't have very many. I'd like to get more. I only have 5, I believe. Yeah, 5. And 4 of them are Black Flag. And they are all new, too. So this is damaged. It's not an original, as you may be able to tell by the cover. This is, I believe this is the first Black Flag album I got. And it was one of the first vinyls I got, too. So I really like this album. It's probably my second favorite Black Flag album. My first favorite is this right here, My War. I got this for Christmas one year. I really like side 2. It's kind of slow and heavier. You know, precursor to grunge and the Melvins type of thing. This is probably my favorite Black Flag album. And then I have Wasted Again. This is the first time I learned that Black Flag had more than one vocalist, besides Henry Rollins. I actually prefer Keith Morris's voice a little more. If you know Black Flag, he was their first singer. And this is, you get to hear some examples of, I think, every singer they had on here. It's just kind of cool to see how they sounded with the different lineups. Like there's an alternate version of Six Pack on here with Dez on vocals. It's a cool collection to have, and I really like the cover. And here's the first 4 years. This is where I discovered the Nervous Breakdown and Jealous Again EPs, 2 of my very favorite EPs of all time. I love them both. And I believe all of this is pre-Henry Rollins. So it's kind of cool to see that. I think it's everything they released prior to Henry Rollins, which is a cool collection. And then this I got recently, Millions of Dead Cops. I actually have not opened this yet. I don't remember if I've heard all of this album, but from what I have heard, it's pretty good. And I'm excited to listen to it once I get it open. I've had it for a few months. I just haven't had a time to open it up and listen to it. So now we will move on to the Psych records. Some of these may be a little on the border, but I would qualify them more as Psych than anything else. Here we have Darks Round the Edges, or Dark Round the Edges. I prefer to just call it Round the Edges. This is the latest reissue. I think the guitarist, Steve Giles, or I believe that's how you say his name, he controlled the reissue of this one, so it might be the first, like, permissible, or, I don't know the word, but I know that the guitarist gave permission for it to be reissued. There's the inner gatefold. I really like it. I think it's cool how they have all the information about who played on what. There's the back cover. And it comes with this booklet with lyrics in it and stuff. Just cool little photos and sort of documents pertaining to it. So I really like this album a lot. This is pretty much about as obscure as you can get for the Psych underground rock and roll scene. I think they only pressed like 64 copies of this originally, and they sell for gargantuan amounts of money. So it's nice to have a reissue. I really like this album. It's a phenomenal record. Yeah, find a place where I can set it down. I like to keep my nicer ones sort of away from everything else. And here we have Fuse. This band is kind of interesting. Tom Peterson and Rick Nielsen were in this band. They're from Cheap Trick. And this band was a local Rockford band. So I'm from Rockford essentially, so it's kind of a cool little memento to have. It was actually signed by Tom Peterson. I don't know if you can see that. There's 2 years on it. It says 1968 and 1990, so I don't know if he signed it twice or what. But this is a really great album. Very different from Cheap Trick. You would not expect members of Cheap Trick to be in a band like this. It's very, there's a lot of organ and mellotron on it. Supposedly Rick Nielsen was like the 3rd person in the US to own a mellotron. But I searched around for this album for quite a while, and I was at one of the local record stores on Black Friday, and I asked if they had a copy, because I thought they did, and they went right over and pulled it out. So I was like, you better believe I'm buying this. And that's one of my gems right there. And here is yet another gem I have, another obscure record. This is Hommel, their self-titled only album they released. I wasn't really actively searching for this album. I went to a record store and saw it there, and the price tag was pretty high. It's one of, if not the most expensive records that I have. I totally butchered that sentence, but I paid quite a bit for it. But, I mean, compared to what they go for on eBay, it was much cheaper than those prices. And I don't believe they've reissued this on vinyl. So I kind of had to have it. It's not the greatest record I've ever heard, but it has some good moments on there, like Tobacco Road and Jumpin' Jack Flash. I really like their cover of that. So it's kind of a cool little obscure record. Not the greatest, not the most obscure, but still cool to have. And then we move on to the Jefferson Airplane. Start off with Surrealistic Pillow. Not the greatest copy, but this is definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. I love this album to pieces, and I'm very glad that I have it on vinyl. Just, there's not a bad track on here. I'm not crazy about White Rabbit. I don't know. It's a good song, but it's a little overrated in my opinion. But I just love this album. I love how they all look on the front of it. And this is like the first album they had Grace, so they were kind of starting to get together that image that they would convey for the rest of the decade. Here's After Bathing at Baxter's. It's got the gatefold. Again, not the most pristine copy. I believe I got this the same time I got Surrealistic Pillow. I always liked how it was the plane pulling the sign. This is definitely a close second for my favorite Airplane records. This is when they started getting more rocky, I guess you could say. On Surrealistic, they still had a lot of folk influences, but this one is more rock influenced, I suppose. And then we have Crown of Creation. I haven't listened to this one a whole lot. I really like Greasy Heart. I think that's a good song. And the cover's cool. I like the back cover too. Yeah, I guess I don't know too much about this album. I just got it because I was trying to round out the Airplane collection which still has holes in it, but just one step closer. And then I have Bless Its Little Pointed Head. Don't know too much about this album either. I mainly got it just to have it. I'm actually not even sure if I've listened to this album. I have quite a few records that I'm not sure if I've ever listened to. I just buy. But nonetheless, maybe I'll listen to it today. Volunteers. This is tied for probably my first favorite with Surrealistic Pillow. I like the back cover, how it's like the newspaper. I always thought that was neat. And how they were wearing masks on the front. I think this was them at their most political. I mean, you've got We Can Be Together, Good Shepherd, Volunteers, Wooden Ships. Just a bunch of great songs. I really dig this album. And this is Bark. I don't remember where I got this album. I must have gotten it at the record store in Rockford. This comes with the paper bag, which was the original packaging. So I thought that was pretty cool. Not my favorite Airplane record. They didn't have Marty on this one, and I thought that was a real lacking factor for them. But nonetheless, it's an alright record. I found a copy of Long John Silver a while ago with the cigar box, but I didn't buy it for whatever reason. Sort of regretting that now.